Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shay Ali here with you on Inspired Online. And this afternoon, we have the amazing pleasure of having Mindy Gibbons-Klein. Now, for those of you that haven't heard of her, first of all, I would say, why not? But I'll give you a little bit about what she does anyway. She's the founder of lots of amazing businesses and programs, starting with the book Midwife. And as you can see behind her, she's also done 24 Karat Bold and the Thoughtful Leadership. So the book Midwife was for those of you that have always wanted to write a book, but a lot of us have these dreams and we get really stuck and we just need someone to very much help us along with that. So she is so experienced at not only writing her own books, she's written about 10, but she helps other people bring that dream to life as well, which is so beautiful. And around thoughtful leadership, it's not only about being a leader, which many of us are these days, but how can we do it with care and thought and compassion? So really delighted that she's come to join us today. Welcome, Mindy.
Thanks a lot, Shay. Delighted to be here.
Absolutely. And Mindy's been with us before on our live stage, but for our online format, we're asking a slightly different question, which is if you had to share your wisdom with the world in a nutshell, what would you say?
Well, can I keep it to two words? Be
You can
thoughtful. Be
be thought,
thoughtful.
be
That
thought.
is it. So many things could be resolved if people would put more thought into their content, into their relationships, into their interactions. And many people don't even realize that they are in control of their thoughts, which you and I know from the work that we've done. But it's more than that. It's you can have access to this superpower every single day. You can stop and think before you speak, before you make a decision. But I think people know this, but they forget.
Absolutely. And I want to take you back to what inspired you to have the be thoughtful message or the thoughtful leadership message. What did that come from?
Well, there's a whole chain of events, as you might imagine, but the thing that really kind of pushed it over the edge was the fact that I was writing about thought leadership. So 24 Karat Bold was my sort of flagship book on thought leadership. And it came out in 2009 when that term was really not very well known.
Hmm.
And it was great because I really wanted to encourage people to put their thoughts into packages like books, but not only, doing things like this, videos, podcasts, getting their message out and saying something new and different and disruptive and exciting, which is thought leadership. Now, I didn't coin the term thought leadership. What happened was in the past 12 years, that term has become very well known. It's used by a lot of people, maybe overused, and I felt it was being abused. And I don't like that when something I'm working on is getting distorted and diluted, and people are getting the wrong impression. So I thought that's fine. Let me not make other people wrong. Let me just raise the bar. Let me just create another level. And actually, in doing so, I think helping people focus on what's really important, because thought leadership without thought, unfortunately, just isn't. And and so thoughtful leadership puts the thought back in.
I love it. Yeah. And well, there's so many great messages in that. And the one that's not maybe as immediately obvious, obviously thought is very important, but it's that concept of, when other people are, I've had this too. I think that person took my idea. And rather than getting upset about it, it's about raising the bar. I think that's so valuable. How did you feel? And did you come to that as an immediate thing? Right, I've got to raise the bar.
Well, that's what I always do, Shay. As I look back and join the dots in my career, in my life, and the way I operate, I am the person who, sometimes it's tiring, and I think, oh, for goodness sakes, but I'm always willing to take that deep breath and step up again.
Hmm.
We learned that from mutual heroes and people we respect, like Tony Robbins,
Yeah.
to step up. You don't just step up once. There's a whole staircase.
Mm.
And that is the big realization for me. And you know what? It's a choice. Some people can stay right at the bottom. Some people can go up one step, two steps. For me, it's not really a choice anymore. I mean, I make that choice every time, but that is my MO. That's how I operate.
Mm.
And these days I am particularly self-aware and particularly keen to ensure that I'm always stepping up when the need arises and finding a way to do it, because so that is what it was. It was just, this raising the bar is my thing, and it does cause me a lot of work, and I love it.
That's great. And then coming back to that question of how to be a thoughtful leader, I'm wondering, how do you balance that between sometimes there's that need to make quick decisions, and sometimes you think about things for a long time, or certain people do.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
where is that balance?
I was going to try to find the page here, but it's probably not just good. It just jumped out at me.
There we go. It was
How
meant to
freaky
be.
is that? How long is a piece of thinking?
I love
I
it.
just literally, there's a whole section on that, because you're right. Let me see, page 64. Ah, that's good.
That
That's
is
my
what is
birthday.
called flow.
I've now quietly said my birth year in public. So never mind that. There's
Button.
there's a perfect amount. No, we're not editing this. No way. So the perfect amount of thought. So how long is it? Well, it's as long as it needs to be, of course, just like the piece of string.
Hmm.
It's as long as it needs to be. And what I mean by that is certain decisions, as you say, you have to make a quick decision. If you see something on fire, you can't think now, let's see, shall I help? Shall I go look for something to try to douse the fire? No, you react
Hmm.
in that kind of emergency situation.
Hmm.
Other things are not life and death,
No.
potentially. So some people are overthinkers. Some people rush in to things that require a bit more thought. Actually, all I'm saying is just think about your thinking.
Hmm.
Just reflect. And, are you not happy with your kind of impulsive, spontaneous decision making? When I was in my 20s, I'm sure I used to speak without thinking. I can remember one or two incidents which we're not talking about today on the show, no way. And I know, like, I could cringe. I am cringing inside
Oh.
because I hadn't put any thought in. And now, boom, I said it, and then, and then it unraveled from there. Other times, actually, I'm not really an overthinker, so I can't think of too many incidents. That's just not me. But I know
Yeah.
people who are, who need to just get clearer. I think I will go step out on a limb here. I think people who are overthinkers don't have clarity. They're either not clear about their values, their goals, their vision, mission, their options. So it's not really their fault. They're thinking a lot more than they have to. Oh,
Yeah.
there's so much more I could say on that, but I won't.
Well, let's speak to both groups separately then. If you are the overthinker
Yeah.
who really struggles to make a decision, and yeah, I'm not really in that category either, but what would you say to them to just help them get that clarity that they need?
So in the Thoughtful Leader, so the book is available in paperback, many ebook formats, audiobook. We keep it on sale all the time, no special offers to make it accessible. So read the book and you'll have lots and lots of ideas. I put most of my best strategies, in fact, everything I could think of, I put into the book. The biggest thing to get clarity is to give yourself time and space and make clarity the goal. Sounds very simple, but many people are reacting to things and they're not having the thinking time. And if they do set aside me time or whatever people call it, or even in meditation, okay, now I'm relaxed, they are not being intentional about their thought process and about the things that they want to improve there. So first of all, say, yeah, I actually, let me be self-aware. And I'm not being myself, I'm being the other person now, role play. Maybe I am an overthinker. Wow, great. That's the first step of, being self-aware, right? And then let me find a way to reflect, intentionally, and not just reflect on stupid things. So I've
Hmm.
spoken to that group now, probably not with as much respect as I would have liked. So I apologize if it didn't land the way I intended. But what I really would love is for people to give themselves that gift to improve, any aspect of their behavior. And thinking is just one.
I think that's perfect, actually. So hopefully that resonated. And let's go back to the, the spontaneous. And we were talking about,
Underthinker.
yeah, when you were thinking back to, I'll share one of mine. And my question's going to be, how do you backtrack from that? So just to make you laugh, I was in my 20s. I was temping at PwC. Um, doing pretty much nothing, to be honest. And I got into the crowded lift. We worked on the 23rd floor, and I really got on with the IT guys. So I was having gossip with one of the IT guys that I ran into, talking about my boss and saying how she doesn't really notice when I go for long lunches or whatever. And of course, my boss is standing right behind me.
Wow.
Yeah, didn't put much thought into that. So thankfully
My
she'd had a lot
goodness.
of champagne at lunch and didn't care. But but when you get
Hmm.
yourself into that foot in mouth syndrome, or you've made a decision that you kind of regret, how do you backpedal and get over that?
Well done. And well done for sharing it live in public to millions of people. I don't know how many will watch this, but it was a long time ago, Shay.
Yeah, I don't
So I
really
think
care.
you're forgiven.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really care.
No.
So listen, darling, I don't think we ever want to backpedal because going forward, when you've made a mistake or an error of judgment, the thoughtful leader, anyway, has a small think about it. And the options really have to include confronting it in some way, bringing it to the open. My favorite way of being thoughtful is communication directly with the person. I don't always do it. There are two or three things, where it's not smooth.
Mm.
But generally, I'm the one to say, like I did a moment ago, actually, I'm just thinking about my behavior when I heard myself and I thought, maybe that didn't land the way I wanted it to. So to address it straight away, first of all, I
Mm.
mean, you can't go back in time, so forget that one. Learn from it, right? Address it straight away. Have a small think about how you might, do the whole NLP matching, mirroring, meet them where they are, and talk to them the way they prefer to be spoken to.
Mm.
Don't do it at a time when they're distracted or, all the obvious things, but do get it out in the open and, just be that heart-centered human that you are. I'm talking to you and anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think some mistakes just happen for a reason.
Maybe, maybe.
I remembered another example, but it's quite a funny one. One of my friends at university was so crazy about this guy, but she was too shy to tell him. So, of course, once when we were walking to the station, leaving our lectures, she was raving about him and he was right behind us.
There's a theme here. maybe look around before you speak. Maybe I talk about thinking
Do
before you
that.
speak. That's one good thing of it. We're recording this during the lockdown, and that's the good thing about it. There's no one behind me except my green screen, so I
That's
can say what I want.
true. So we're sorted. Can we talk about books and how to write them? Let's do it because I'm
No, because that would be about 8 hours in length. So, what specifically would you like to know about writing a book? I will answer
I,
any specific
I was going
question.
to break it down. Don't worry.
Okay.
So okay, let's talk to the people that are getting started because there's a lot. I think that's a massive percentage of people that are in that book category. I think it's the vast minority that get to write, publish, and
Yeah, you
sell.
read about that.
Yeah. What if you've just had this thought, this dream, and you've never really got round to it? you might be, I don't have enough time, got to do my job, got to look after the kids. But my dream was that. So,
Mm.
how do you even get started?
Okay. Well, first, thank you, and sorry for interrupting before because it is such a big topic. But
Oh,
the getting started bit, we can do this. We can do this. We're doing this. So we're doing this. Um, the where to start, it can be overwhelming, and there are the fears. And so the ones that you spoke about were kind of excuses that people bring up. You know, I don't have any time. I've got the kids. Blah blah blah. And then there are excuses that are really thinly veiled fears, such as I'm not sure what to write about, which is a thinly veiled, either imposter syndrome or, self-doubt. I have too many ideas, very similar. Let me just keep saying I have too many ideas and keep it at bay. What I would say, here's my best advice to people who haven't yet started writing or even planning their book.
mm,
Before I give you some advice, folks, well done, because I wish everybody would get help right at the start when it's still the ideas stage. It's
mm,
a beautiful stage to be at because you're still playing with lots of possibilities and ideas. It's a magical place to be when all the possibilities are still open to you. So I would get out a notebook and I would have a blank page and I would write maybe at the top of the page, or perhaps, or a word like that. Yeah, but
mm,
maybe is a better word. Maybe. And then every time you have what you think could be an idea for the book, add it to the page. You can do this on a spreadsheet or in a Word document. It doesn't have to be handwritten, but the kinesthetic power of writing it down might be useful.
mm,
And then you're not committing because it says maybe at the top. And this is really liberating for a lot of people.
right,
Don't pin yourself down too early.
mm,
And I'm saying this because I have met so many people who've gone, oh, I'm inspired. And, that not in a good way, because they end up with something that, oh, it's not quite what I thought, or it's off track, or, oh, I'm not sure about it. Oh, is it too short? Is it too long? Have I left something important out? And they've written it already. So give yourself a pat on the back if you're still at that early stage.
mm,
Get some kind of input early on. I
mm,
have loads of videos on my websites, on my YouTube, or just Google me, Google Book Midwife. But you will hear me say, when is the best time to get help? As early as possible, like right from the start, right when it's ideas. And you can, obviously, anybody can sit down and figure out which book they want to write and how they want it to turn out and what style it should be and what to include and to leave. Anybody's capable of doing that, and many do, or some do. And you can get input on all that. So, really, before you pin yourself down, that's my biggest message. Think about it. If you really want to have a book, it's great to explore all the ideas and do it in a very structured way.
yeah. That's lovely. What a lovely way to start. And maybe is a great question.
Mm,
It's playing with possibility, and there are many out there.
correct.
Now you've worked with many, many, many people in relation to writing their books. Um, what would you say are the qualities of those that actually make it, to publication and to then sell or become a bestseller?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So publishing is very easy.
Yeah.
It's a very different story. Anybody can publish. The project just needs to be funded. So I don't make a great distinction. Self-publishing doesn't mean you're paying, but that's another whole conversation. So anybody can publish, and they can either raise the funds, reach in their pocket, get it sponsored, as in either by the publisher or anyone else.
Mm,
So that is what it takes. So 100% of the people who want to publish a book can do it. Is a question of funding it. £5,000, $6,000 just would take care of absolutely everything.
wow.
And many people think, well, I want the publisher to pay for that because that means they believe in me and my work and my book.
Mm.
That's a whole complicated lecture that I could give people.
So that
It
journey
means they
does.
believe that if a publisher is paying for a book, or if a record label's paying for, the production of a CD or whatever they call it now, that means that they think they can make money, so that they believe in that product insofar as they can get a return on their investment. That's what it means. These days, it's very tricky. So to mention the pandemic again, this is a reality for the time we're recording this. It's been hard for the big publishers because they have big overheads. And so even before, it was very tricky to get a publishing deal, a traditional one. Let me just spin it one more 10 degrees and say that maybe it's not even smart to wait for someone to publish you, because meanwhile the clock's ticking and the book is still not published and whatever. So I believe in entrepreneurial publishing. Nice. And that means, the author is co-investing up front. And I really feel that is a smart way to get it done, see the book out sooner. So publishing is easy. The next thing you said was bestseller.
Yeah.
And there's many ways to create a bestseller. So we had a book just yesterday hit bestseller list in the US and the UK, and it's a really great book, and it's a coaching book. Yes, and it's one of dozens of books where I've been involved through our publishing company, but also coaching those authors on how to go to market so it's not sleazy. Anybody can be a bestseller if they sell enough books and more books than anyone else in that category. But it's about how it's done. Is it done with integrity? Is it just, going to be a seller for 1 hour? Or do you want a long-term? I know which one I would want, and I know what I focus on. So that's, let's get the bestseller thing dealt with. What is it someone's really aiming for? And if it's an ego trip, that's great. Nothing wrong with ego, but think beyond, just having it hit the bestseller list and then drop off a cliff.
I've never even really thought about that.
I think about it every day.
Yeah. So what would you say are the qualities that you need if you want to be that long-term success?
Well done. Spoken like a true lawyer. Get me right back to that point. I think the qualities are the person has written about what they know. The person has written it in a way that meets the needs of the market. So, if it's a book that should be, kind of that it's not twice as long as it needs to be, that it has the content that will resonate with that market. And the thought, again, being thoughtful about it all the way through, the thought has gone in to really create that experience. The book can be an experience if the person who's reading it gets involved and reads it all the way through. And that's why people stick with books, because it ticks those boxes. So, a lot of people think, oh, I want to tell my story, which is great. I love to tell my story in the right circumstances, for the right reasons. But the real thing is, what does the reader need to hear? Not so much what do I want to say, is what's going to resonate with the reader, because that's what they need and want to hear. And then the blend of that, if that's done with care and in a thoughtful way, that is what consistently creates the best books, in my opinion.
Lovely. And we talked about story, which is such a great topic. What would you say are the elements to a really good story?
Oh, gosh. So, my mind is going to like Joseph Campbell, and it's not necessary for me to define a story arc, I don't think, in answer to your question, Shay. I think each story is going to bring what it needs to that situation or to that audience. And so I'm not being vague. I just think that it's impossible to say a story must be emotive and draw out people's emotions. Not necessarily. You could have a story that it just states the facts and gets his point across. I think it needs to be what it needs to be. I think it needs to be the length it needs to be, because we've all heard people, especially on stages, going on longer than they possibly need to.
Yes.
And I'll leave it at that. So the right content, the right tone, the right length. And I do think there's one thing that is a universal. So I will answer the question, in fact, that it engages. And so if it's told on a stage, I've been on stages where it's a huge room and it's dark and I can only see the first 2 rows. But I've engaged with people in those first 2 rows, and the rest are seeing me on a screen. That's important because they're seeing me looking with that level of engagement, intensity, caring, whatever I'm bringing to it. And that's important. So, don't just think about the PowerPoint slides. I don't tend to use them, actually, as you know. I will make sure I engage with everyone I can see. It's interesting in this age of digital media, engaging. So I'm writing another book at the moment, which includes this, how you really get that across when, and imagine if this was audio only. So we wouldn't even have my eyes, getting bigger every time I choose to do that thing. I don't choose to do it. It's just one of my things. And how can you get your message across when it really is one way? And I'm talking and hoping that it's engaging, but it's not happening, for me at least, in real time. If I put my other devices on and looked at the Facebook, then I wouldn't be looking at you and the audience. So it is trickier now.
Yeah, definitely. Just in as you were talking, what I was also thinking of is in the context of certain books that I was a great reader when I was little. Not so much now because I read a lot of court papers, but there were certain ones that I just couldn't put down. I would use Harry Potter as an example. I was a fan, and when they came out, hands up, I'd literally stay up all night and finish the book, to be fair, rather than save it for a chapter a day. So what do you think is the distinction between something like that people can't put down, and there's just so much craziness generated around it? I mean, when book 4 came out, I remember people were queuing at bookshops to try and get their hands on one of the first copies and stuff.
Yep.
What creates that?
Well, I must admit, I'm not working with any authors of fiction at the moment, and really have done very little of that over the years. My work is with entrepreneurs and business leaders writing business books and self-help. However, there is every possibility of somebody being really enthralled by a self-help or even a business book, because it's doing all those things. It's engaging, it's the right length, the stories are the right length. So it's the same principles. And what creates the buzz, it's a very simple process to define. So you've got the book, and if the book is the best that it can be, it's going to have its best chance in the market. That, coupled with marketing, means that people get to know about it. So books that are not promoted or marketed, it is really hard. It's really hard to get any traction. And people say, oh, how can I make my book a bestseller? And I've already told you my views on bestsellers, but if you want the book to sell and sell more and sell well, it needs a marketing plan. It needs consistent effort. So you've got the best book with the best marketing plan, or some kind of marketing, and then it begins to take off, and then we lose complete control of anything, because word of mouth, whether it goes viral, to use that great phrase, that whether it's going to compel somebody to stand outside a bookstore at midnight and wait, that isn't something the author or the publisher can control. So I would love it if our books, actually some of our books have created a frenzy. Even the business books we published at my publishing company, The $1 Billion Secret. And The $1 Billion Secret now has 17 language editions and has sold way in excess of most books in their first year. And partly because you say, oh yeah, that's a clever title, as some cynical people have said. It's not because of that. A lot of marketing effort and spend went into it. I think there's 250 different pieces of coverage about it. And the author has flown all around the world doing interviews. Every time there was a media request, the author said yes and found a way to do it.
Wow.
So he's pulled away from the pack by doing what other people aren't willing to do.
Mm.
And there's so many other great things about it. So we have actually seen a frenzy with that book, and it's been delightful. And the author has, really been great to work with, Raphael Badziag. So if he's listening and watching, thank you, because the publisher can only do so much.
So that's amazing, and I think a real credit to that spirit of ambition and passion, and what happens if you throw everything into what you do. Um, Back to like an author writing question, and I always had this
Mhm.
question when I was writing as well. I'd finish writing the book, and it'd be, oh, yeah, I've grown up, so now I have all these new ideas that I could put in to my
Yep.
finished product. But by the time that I put in the new ideas, we've got me growing up all over again and thinking that is, the book is a version of an old me. So when
Mm.
I've written two self-help books, that's the personal feeling I had,
Mhm.
as I was writing. So how do you know the balance between, actually this is ready to go to publisher, or maybe I should put the next version of my growth and journey in here as well? Because you could go into an ever
Um,
cycle and never do it.
yes, it could, and it does for many people, doesn't it?
Mm.
I'm not particularly like that, as we've already established. I'm not an overthinker, and you've managed to get those books out, so you did draw the line somehow, and that's what everybody needs to do. And usually, if I feel like bringing in all the coaching strategies, you just do the what won't happen if you don't do it, and how will the future look if you keep waiting, and everybody knows this, but they need to just compare the risk of doing it, getting it out there now, compared to the risk of not doing it and waiting and waiting. And many people wait their whole lives and they die with the book still in them, or printed out but not published or whatever. And that's really sad. So I would like to encourage anybody who has finished writing, with or without coaching or help, to just consider the publishing options. Consider is the word we use at The Thoughtful Leader. Just consider, just have a chat, find out what your options are. And then maybe you'll need to leap in before you are actually ready. And if you really have that much else to say, write your next book. Shay's written 2, I've authored and co-authored 10, and there's another one in the works. So there's always another book.
That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a fascinating conversation, as it always is. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I am not interested in selling any thoughts, ideas, products, or services to anyone. That might sound really strange. What I mean by that is I don't sell. And anybody who knows me and has seen me on a stage talking about flip the funnel, it's because I'm not a big fan of doing all that stuff, and because I don't know how to do it, and that's not the way I operate. I'm very accessible. You can find me easily. You can connect with me. I'm on every single social network, and just find me and have a chat. But most importantly, do something. Do something. Make a decision. If it's about your own leadership style, your behaviors as a leader, thoughtful or otherwise, if you want to improve yourself, and certainly if you want to put your best ideas into the package of a book, I'm always happy to have a chat. And that's really why I'm here on this planet, to have chats.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today, Mindy. Just give us, do we just find Mindy Gibbons-Klein, or how do we connect with you?
Yes, and I have a very strange spelling of my name, and people can either spell Mindy, Gibbons, or Klein wrong, or all three. So what I would say is I am founder of the Book Midwife, and if they type Book Midwife, one word, or even two, they'll find me on most platforms, because it's quite difficult to misspell Book Midwife, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, and hopefully speak to you soon. Take care.
Thanks for having me.